Let's start. Good morning. It's week 6 governance class, and we will do the following this week. We will look at the last weeks, including the in-class assignment that is now handed out back to you, and I will reflect on that, how you did it and what is important and how I grade so that you are prepared for the exam when it comes to these things. We will touch upon topic 6 as indicated in the course description, and we will look at the last 2 topics. We are still aiming at the same intended learning outcomes, terminology to get a sort of hinge of how legal professionals look at it, how you can easily, and we will look at it today, translate it to your, almost in time, to your own profession. And it's a scientific course, as in that you're forced to read scholarly articles. And then, again, today, the whole exercise, the whole aim is that you are not afraid for those articles. They are just human beings. 2, that you're not too impressed by the words, because it's just a person like you and me that tries to explain something. And thirdly, that you get used to the fact that maybe it's not 100% clear what the article is about, and that is not necessarily your fault. It can easily be the author's fault. But together with the lectures, it contributes to sort of ID what regulated industrial safety is all about. Last week we added the topics of the regulators, and we zoomed in on the question, how could you design them? So you're a state, you have market failure in your territory, and then the question is, how do you arrange, how do you appoint people? What type of people? Where do you locate them? You as in the state. So ministers, parliaments, so those are the thinkers, scholars, who are reflecting on how shall we design the state, are those who are asked to answer this question, how should we design it? And that is not a one-off event. So each couple of years, again, there's on the agenda, how shall we design it? So there are not only new states that emerge, South Sudan, all kinds of other states, maybe Catalonia, Scotland, Bavaria, Friesland, name it, where the society is confronted with this question, whoa, next to the private remedies of market failure, can we have a governmental one? And if so, how? It's just like you organize your apartment. Okay, if you do this, and so it's down to earth. And markets evolve. So we moved from a sort of welfare state with rowing and rowing. So both where it comes to the governance, enforcement, and the market activities, the state was rowing, and then we moved to the regulatory state, where the state said, well, let's have the market row and we steer. That's again a moment where the whole system had to be redesigned. Now we are facing the economic crisis. So as we speak in Brussels, people are doing the stuff we do in this course by redesigning the governance, the regulation of banks and financial systems. So 1st of July, new rules start. Next 1st of January, new arrangements start. So each time, by the time you get used to the previous arrangement, there's a new arrangement in place. So that is a message of this course. And if that is the case, well, let's look then at what are the options. So if it is apparently a task of intellectual people like you, professionals, to help designing, what are then the design options? Like in art school, and then you learn what colors are there before you are a painter. And the good news in, let's say, governance and public management fields, there are not that many options. So either the state is doing it or not. Or a little bit, you know, free options. We said, well, type 1 of a regulator is the regulator that is the executive branch itself, so the minister. Type 2 is where the minister feels uncomfortable to be the regulator authority because, for example, the same minister or his colleague is owner of a market actor. So then you have two cats, and then you try to circumvent the potential conflict of interest, being that you favor the state company and you hamper the market actor, which will not be accepted by investors in the market actor, and who wants to enter a market where your competitor is a big state company who trick you, steal away all the consumers. That is not a market where you want to be in. And so it should be a fair market. And then type 2 is then to put them on distance. So they're still civil servants, the regulators, the inspectorate, the agencies, but they're in a separate building, and they are not under the daily influence of political emotion. As in members of parliament who are screaming that there's something wrong, there's a little baby died because of poop in bottled water, and we should nationalize all bottle companies. You know, that type of emotion should then be on distance. It is a sort of systematic, evidence-based approach in such a regulator or inspectorate, the Food and Health Inspectorate, for instance. They say, well, once in a while babies die, yes, that's sort of the statistics. Let's not panic, as long as not the whole population dies. And these types of more scientific approaches, as opposed to political approaches, where politicians scream there should be more rowing on the state side, and when the state is rowing, they scream there should be more steering. You know, that is political science, the fate of the day-to-day emotions of politics. So that's 2. And 3 is that an existing separate legal entity, a bank, a institute of a university on seat is an expert in a certain field, money, plants, diseases, and that they are endowed with public authority. So apart from their other activities, you tell them, well, by the way, a few times a week, could you be an authority? And the authority, having this job description, gathering information on the question whether goods and services and market behavior comply with the set rules, 2, form a legal opinion and intervene. And that's what we talk about. And then the 4th flavor is then the complete self-regulation, where the state is not involved, where the market itself creates a market regulator, a disciplinary board for lawyers, doctors, accountants, these types of things. And the only contribution of the state in the 4th flavor is that the state, by law, forces all the actors, all the lawyers, all the doctors, all the accountants, to be member and to enter into a membership contract with that body. And then the state, that's the steering on the side of the state. Be in association and behave together. That's the 4th flavor. So that's it, that's the spectrum. Unless scholars invent the 5th one, but it's sort of what it is about. And I wish to emphasize that even the design is part of administrative law. So it's not just that the legislative branch is sort of thinking, oh, today let's redesign. Also the design should be based in the principles of administrative law, as in enshrined in the Constitution or in separate laws on the principles of administrative law. We have a sort of catalog, like legitimacy. So all those actions should be based on a law. So it should be a proper legislative process to force all the attorneys at law, then they're saying, to be member of the bar association. And proper legislative process means, implicitly, sort of democratic process. That there's a sort of decision making taking place with majority voting. We, the people, think it's wise that all the attorneys at law are a member of the bar association. Because maybe we, the people, think, let's not make it a type 4 regulator, self-regulation. We distrust those persons. Let's ask the Minister of Justice to keep an eye on the quality of attorneys at law. That can then be, in the decision-making process, the outcome. And so there's a very important principle of administrative law, that the choices made are based on the law. And then the next aspect of legitimacy is that any design, any state decision or law should not infringe on laws, existing laws. And the most popular ones are human rights laws, or fundamental rights laws, or civil liberty laws, and how they are called in different states. Among others, freedom of speech, or access to justice. So the fundamental right that you're entitled to protection in a legal dispute by an attorney at law. And that is why it should be self-regulation, because if my profession, the attorney at law, would be regulated by the Minister of Justice, and in the courtroom I'm the defendant of a suspect and the minister is the opposing party as a prosecutor, then there's a conflict of interest. Because then he calls me and says, do you want to be an attorney at law next year? Then you should not defend the suspect too well, because my employee, the prosecutor, should win. That is not the call we want to take place in a society. That is why it should be self-regulation. Just as an example out of millions. And then when it comes to the quality of seeds, of vegetables, you know, we are not so much sort of involved. And we think, you know, probably the guys in Wageningen University, the agricultural university, they know best what the quality of seeds are. Let's ask them to keep an eye on the quality of seeds. I don't know anything about seeds. The Minister of Agriculture doesn't know anything about seeds. And so they have a sort of research university, they have the laboratories, and they can test whether there are terrible bacteria or diseases in certain seeds before they get into the soil and produce the vegetables we eat. That's sort of this type of concept. So the design of the regulation is a deliberate choice based on the sort of logical circumstances. The in-class assessment was the one that is now on the slide. And as a general feedback, I would say a few things. The instruction said, please write an essay, and at least containing an introduction, body, and conclusion. So all those of you, 80%, who did not read that instruction, should better their life, and in the exam, read the instruction and comply. So most of you jumped to the answer. And what I want you to learn is that you have to take the reader by the hand. Dear sir, sit back, fasten your seatbelt and relax. I will entertain you on the following topic. That is crucial. It's the foreplay in intellectual communication. Nothing more, nothing less. So don't forget it. And don't forget the conclusion. And so lots of you ended with time's up. Cool, for an exercise. But make sure that you collect your thoughts above in 1, 2, 3 sentences. Herewith I come to the conclusion that you summarize your thinking. And the reason to emphasize that is that it is a perfect chance to sort of tweak your words. Because quite often while writing, you discover, well, but maybe it's a little bit like this, and there's no time to rewrite the whole essay. And so your conclusion is then a sort of last chance to impress me, and then I see the developments of your thinking while reading, and then you can hit the nail in your conclusion. So that is a easy one. So don't skip that requirement. 2, the pitfall of students that did not all the homework, like reading Braithwaite, is that they think they can get away with vague language. And especially in political science, that is a serious pitfall. That you produce sort of quasi-intelligent words, but that it is not sort of making sense. So quite a few of you fell for that pitfall. I know how, because you did not read Braithwaite. The question is very simple. What is responsive regulation? Well, that is about 2 pyramids and a little bit more that are sort of explained in an article. It's pretty straightforward. It's about that this state should do capacity building with an eye on compliance and avoidance of market failure. And if capacity building doesn't work, that you have the sanctioning approach, reparatory impunity. So responsive regulation is a very concrete thing. It's a theory containing of 2 pyramids. One pyramid is this story, the second pyramid is this story. Conclusion, and with this theory, states could design their regulated industrial safety in such a way that it works. And a few of you were planning to read the details of that article and then sort of stating vague things. And then 4 of you, and I don't know whether you were sitting together, were describing to me how a state could intervene with the 5 C's, which is not the question. And so responsive regulation, and so it's a sort of bizarre word, responsive regulation, is invented by a person, Mr. Braithwaite, and so you should strictly take that as a theory. So that's a different question as how did other scholars classify the types of intervention the state could do, with command and competition and communication, consensus and code, which is a different question. And so those are the feedback things. What I think is already promising is your use of language. So continue to take it that way. Your mastering of full sentences and the like. So I was pleased to see that level, so be proud of that. And the number of points that is on your script is the amount that corresponds with these 15 points. So if you have 15 or 14, then keep up the good work. If you have 9, then it is sort of pass. And if you have 6 or 4, that is then like, well, interesting text, but not an answer to the question, or very far away from anything close of an essay, or these types of consideration. How is that? Surprise? Completely different from other courses?
May I come and take my paper?
Sure. This is all about your learning. But tell me, different from other classes, these types of criteria?
Yeah, somewhat.
Which skill course did you discuss introduction, body, conclusion?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was not an extreme surprise. Alright. And in which course?
But one.
You changed identity?
No, he gave me the wrong person's name.
Well, good heart. Yes, please.
I think the difference is like we get essays, but usually I think we have more time to do essays because it's difficult to have an introduction.
Okay, and so the time is then a challenging
for essays,
yes, and confronting aspect. Okay.
Is it going to be open exam?
Well, the question is whether there's an open book exam. I did not get back an answer back from the exam board. So hopefully today I know.
One question, what does this say?
Yes, that is a sort of minus sign. So each lecture has a sort of obscure bookkeeping type of habits, and this is my way of expressing sort of minus. Sort of accountant type of thing. So plus is promising and minus is, yeah. Other reactions? Yes?
When do we know of its open book?
I hope today. I will contact the coordinator again and ask whether that is permitted. So the question is, I like that. So it's whether I am permitted to. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yes?
Will these lectures that are filmed be available, or?
Yes, so my aim is to make them available, but I'm struggling with the size of the files. And so Blackboard is not swallowing them, and I did not got a chance to process them in a sort of video processing program to make them smaller and then upload them on YouTube. That is most likely the best channel then. But it is my aim, but sort of I'm hit by the complexity of the 1 gigabyte sort of size of the films and so forth. But I hope, fingers crossed, that. Is there someone who has extremely high experience on processing videos? Yeah. Okay, so maybe I knock on your door to help me. So, for me, this was a sort of realistic exam question. And these are the criteria I applied also in the exam. And I know that when you do the reading, and then, you know, oh, it's about those pyramids, let me make a little sort of summary of those pyramids, or any other question. And that can build on the stuff you do at home. So what I expect you to do is to make 1-page summaries of each of the 7 or 8 articles for now. And I don't mind that you do it in an efficient way, that you exchange it among each other. Be an efficient student group, I would say. And that you have sort of elevator pitch on each of those topics. You know what an elevator pitch is? You're in the elevator with a future boss, and then you have 2 minutes to impress. It is less. How much seconds? 45 seconds. Okay. Well, here you had 20 minutes to impress. Yeah, but so it's not your language, it's not your ability to write. I think that is pretty impressive. And so just do the preparatory reading at home and then reproduce. And be creative. Yes, last question.
Are all your questions straightforward like this, or do you have more complex as well?
I have also other type of questions. I have multiple choice questions. 10, as in the course description, where we have the A, B, C, D, E option, and where I test whether you see a difference between the 5 C's and the types of regulators and the pyramids, you know, that you're not mixing it up. And then I have one like this, and one that is a little bit more story, but ultimately sort of similar to this.
2 questions that we have to run.
I believe so, by heart, for free. But it fits in the amount of hours. Don't worry. We did a calculation. Okay. This is a big story. And let's then move. Remember, we talk about concrete rules for good services and market behavior. And then the question, do people comply? Is the steering to stay in your government building and pray that there's no market failure